Hey everyone. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly go over this day one roller coasters doc. You can see I have it pulled up on my screen here. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through some of these answers. When I graded yours, I just graded for completion. So I did go through and read your answers because I wanted to see where we were with everything. So I'll talk about some of the misconceptions that I saw as I was going through those. But just follow along with me. You can have your document open too. And you can make any changes that you need to. And you can pause this video at any time if you want to catch up, because I may be talking a little bit fast just to make it kind of quick for you. Okay, so you guys had this link up here that just kind of helped you answer some of those questions. So hopefully you were able to get that open. Let's start here with these 4 words where you were doing the fill in the blank. So number 1 says roller coasters use gravity to move the train around the track. I had a lot of people actually say friction, which, yes, roller coasters do use friction, but that's more for slowing the train down than for making it go around the track. Number 2 says, when does a roller coaster begin to store potential energy? So when it is being pulled up the first hill, that's the main one. That's when it stores all its energy. So during the first hill, the engine and the cable are being used to pull the cart up. So that's actually external energy that's being added into the roller coaster. So then when it goes all the way up to the top of that first hill, it has a lot of potential energy. Number 3 says gravity pulls the train down the tracks, which continues to increase the acceleration and velocity. That one I think was pretty easy for you guys. When we think of down, pulling down, we think of gravity. Number 4, the roller coaster moves faster with the more kinetic energy it has. So kinetic energy is energy of motion. If we're moving fast, we've got a lot of kinetic energy. Number 5 says friction is the reason the roller coaster is able to come to a stop at the end of the ride. So that's where friction comes into play. That slows down the track, not makes it move. Number 6, so we're getting into the extended response here. How does a roller coaster demonstrate the law of conservation of energy? So that's just stating that energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes forms. So potential energy is converted to kinetic energy as it moves between each hill on the track. So it's that constant transfer of energy into different forms. No energy is being destroyed, but the roller coaster begins to slow down when some of the energy is transferred into the friction on the track. So there's also wind resistance. There's a lot of different places that this energy can be transferred to, but the main ones are it transfers constantly between potential and kinetic, and then that friction at the end. And number 7, why do you think the first hill of the roller coaster is always the largest? So after the first hill, the roller coaster never creates more energy, it just continues to transfer back and forth between potential and kinetic. So it's never able to exceed the amount of energy from that first hill, which is why it has to be the tallest. So if we have it at the tallest height at the beginning, that's the most energy we're going to have. That's where we need to have the most energy. So because some energy is converted into other forces such as wind resistance and the friction of the wheels, each successive hill is lower so that the coaster will be able to make it over each peak. Number 8, what happens to potential energy and kinetic energy as the train travels around the roller coaster? So when I say PE and KE, that's just my shorthand version of potential energy and kinetic energy. So what happens to PE and KE as the train travels around the roller coaster? So it continues to be converted back and forth between potential energy and kinetic energy, giving the roller coaster the energy to move through the hills on the track. So when it's at the top of the hill, lots of potential energy. When it's at the bottom of the hill, lots of kinetic energy, which actually comes into play here in number 9. This was a tricky one for us for sure. So place a letter next to the following that best describes the correct location of where the cart would be. So number 1 says, where's the roller coaster create the most potential energy? I'd say most of us got that one. It's up here at the top of the hill. That's where we're going to have the most potential energy. I did notice some of us kind of flip-flopped potential and kinetic energy. Okay, number 2, where the roller coaster will create the most kinetic energy. So that should be B. So B is correct here because it's at the bottom of the largest hill. Now, I had a ton of people say D, and I can see why, because that's the lowest point on the track. But just because it's the lowest doesn't mean it has the most kinetic energy. It has the most kinetic energy because it has the most motion. So that will come at the bottom of the biggest hill. And then number 3, where the roller coaster would be, or would be able to create the second most potential energy. So that's going to be the second highest hill, which is going to be E. So E is the second highest hill, so that is the second most potential energy. Okay, and then this last question, it says, explain what gravitational potential energy is and how it relates to the different sizes of roller coaster hills. So the first part is just, what is it? So gravitational potential energy is directly related to the height of the object. So GPE, the abbreviation for gravitational potential energy, increases the higher an object is from the Earth's center. So basically, if it's high off the surface, it's going to have a high gravitational potential energy. The higher it gets, the higher that GPE gets. So then the roller coaster connection is the highest hill in the roller coaster is the location where we would have the most gravitational potential energy. So then just continuing with this, I hope you guys saw these pictures down here. One thing that we haven't talked about yet is mass. So if two objects are at the same height from the ground, but one has a greater mass, the one with the greater mass is going to have more gravitational potential energy. On the other hand, if we have two objects of the same mass, but are at different heights, the one with the greater height will have the more gravitational potential energy. So I hope that cleared up some of your questions that you may have had on the roller coasters worksheet. If you have any further questions or you would like me to go over something a little bit more with you, just send me an email and I'd be happy to do it. Have a great day.